If you've been frustrated watching home prices shoot through the roof, out of reach, this video is for you. I'm going to talk about first-time home buyers and some of the things that they can do to get into their first home. Some tips, strategies, and approaches. Honestly, this usually means millennials, but these tips will work for anyone, really. So, COVID-19 really pushed a tremendous number of millennials into the market to buy their first home. More than 30% of millennials were pushed into the market by COVID-19 to buy their first home. The lockdowns, the remote work, the record low rates, all contributed to something of a craze.
Like that craze for baby alligators in New York years back?
You know, I've been thinking about this new craze for moving pictures.
Yes. Each one of these men started an international dance craze,
which really pushed prices just out of reach for a lot of people. It also didn't help that we had a lot of competition for the same homes. So, what can we say about the people you're competing with? And also, what can we say about how you can strategize starting now to buy your first home, even if that's in a year or 2 or 5 years? Well, as far as the people you're competing against, let's talk about who these people are. So, as far as millennials go, up to 80% of millennials said they're willing to buy a home sight unseen. Generally, what that means is that they've seen the home through online means or an app of some sort where they've seen pictures or gone through a 3D tour, but they haven't actually walked through the home. Part of that was the pandemic pushed us into a spot where a lot of people didn't want to risk getting sick going to see homes in person. So, being that millennials have spent a lot of time online, and in the formative years of their young adulthood, that's really when online activities started, they've become very comfortable looking at homes online, pictures, through apps, and other means like that. So, they're willing to buy homes sight unseen, and they're also willing to buy fixer-uppers.
So it's a fixer-upper, but it's got personality plus.
It's rustic, kind of a fixer.
Hey, you wanna watch a little fixer-upper?
Did I say that right? Is it fixers upper? Fixer uppers, right? And it makes sense why people would want to buy a fixer upper. They want a deal. So 71% of millennials say that they were willing to buy a fixer upper so that they can get in at a price point that makes sense for them and their budget. Makes sense to me. So why were millennials pushed into the market in the first place? Really, it comes down to the fact that they want more space. For some millennials who've been working at home and already own their first home, they realized that their small spaces just weren't going to cut it for them anymore. If this became the new normal, there was a lot of work from home happening. They didn't want to be confined to a small space. They wanted a separate space where they could work and live, which it's hard to blame them, really. Before the pandemic started, millennials were okay with 1,700 square feet. As the pandemic wore on, millennials were preferring much closer to 2,400 square feet. That's almost a 50% increase in square footage, which is quite a lot. So, the part of what millennials have been looking for is a good deal on their first home. 56% say they want to spend $250,000 or less on their first home, which makes a lot of sense. $250,000 sounds fantastic for a home, because here in Utah, Salt Lake City more specifically, the median and average are close together, but the sort of the average price for a single family home in Salt Lake City has topped $600,000. So yes, I would love to pay $250,000 for a first-time home. But being what it is, $600,000 is really the average for a lot of homes in Salt Lake City. If you're looking for something a little bit more affordable, I highly recommend thinking about condos, townhomes, twin homes. Those range mostly from $250,000 to $500,000. It's a little bit less space to start with, but it's a great way to build equity so that you can move into the next home that's a little bit bigger. So, really the biggest impediment and barrier for most millennials trying to buy their first home has been the down payment. I'd say about 2/3 of millennials are saying that they cannot afford a 20% down payment, which makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about $600,000, that's $120,000. I don't know anyone who can just save $120,000 over a couple of months, right? I mean, of course you exist, and I would love to talk to you. But for the average person, saving $120,000 even in a year is a long stretch, right? So you'll be happy to hear that the average amount of money that most people are putting down for their down payment is nowhere near 20%. For the average buyer, the actual percentage that people are using for their down payment is closer to 12%. And for first-time buyers, it's closer to 6%. And if you're going with a conventional mortgage, you can go as low as 3.5%. 3 to 3.5. I guess 3% is actually the lowest you can go. But obviously, it makes sense to make your down payment as big as possible, because that's going to make your mortgage much smaller to have a bigger down payment, right? So, what have been the obstacles preventing people from saving a substantial down payment? Well, millennials are racked with student loan debt. The average student loan debt for each millennial is $30,000. $30,000 it's a fair amount of debt to add to your debt to income ratio, and it's also a fair amount of debt to pay down, which prevents you from saving up that down payment, right? So 42% of millennials said that finances stressed them out. And I suppose probably that's true for most people, that finances are the number one most stressful thing. But it's also the thing that's preventing them from building up a nice, solid down payment. So one of the ways that millennials are dealing with this new development is that they have become much more open to moving to the suburbs. Previously, millennials were preferring to live in urban areas that are walkable and engaging. And usually what that means is that you live in a neighborhood where you can walk to a cafe or a pub or somewhere with food and entertainment of some sort that's walkable and feels like a community, and it's close by, and you can sort of live in like a little small area where you feel like this is your extended family, so to speak. So moving to the suburbs has helped with that tremendously. And then 80% of millennials are saying that owning a home is still part of the American dream for them. But I think there's another element to this American dream stuff, which is that it is the most dependable way to build wealth. Whether you're silent generation or baby boomer generation or millennial, it's still one of the best ways to build wealth. In the United States of America, owning a home is, I guess you could say, sort of prioritized as an asset, such that you are afforded the ability to build wealth better than almost any other way. You capture tax benefits, you capture appreciation, and you're able to build equity through paying your mortgage down over time. Being that the down payment has proven to be the most difficult aspect of buying your very first home, I've put together a free guide with some ideas as to how you can come up with the down payment for your first home. If you want my free guide, ideas on how to get a down payment together for your first home, click on the link down here. I provided it down here for free, and I hope you find it to be as useful as the videos I'm making, if not more.
Finito, the end of the chapter.
Hey, look at me. It is over. Finito.
Ending! It's over right now! Finito!